And before we head to distribution, monetizing podcasts, sponsorships. Okay, another way.
I also do events as well. So sometimes, like I actually had a deal that I worked out where they wasn't 100% sold on the episode, which totally fine. But I was like, hey, like I really know these women. These are not women that I just interview and that's it. It's not a hit it and quit it type of thing. This is like women that I actually speak to on an everyday basis. I would love to do like a brunch or something. So it's like, if you're not going to give me money on the episode, you're going to give me money somehow. You know what I'm saying? And then I actually did that with Zona de Cuba. So I did the season finale for season 1 as Zona de Cuba. I partnered with Jack Daniels and I said, hey, let's do this season finale where we're actually recording this as an episode. And that's what we did. So the season 1, I brought about 10 women to the table and like it was fully funded by them and I was still able to use it as an episode. So they actually got 2 key takeaways. They got the Instagram and socials from the 10 women that were there, but then they also got an episode out of it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So events.
So
we have events, we have sponsorship,
merch.
We have merch.
Yeah.
We have ad placements.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Content.
Yeah. I mean, I do, a lot of the money too, believe it or not, like I do make on TikTok Live. So I do something that's called Sala Saturdays, where I go up on TikTok Live and I'm literally at home in my robe at the Sala just talking. I don't really have a script. I just kind of just talk and just kind of update everyone with what's going on. And then like people will just buy into it. Similar to like Instagram when you buy badges.
And you do that from your Growing Up Latina page?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah, definitely. You should. Like
That's
just start talking.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, at first I was a little intimidated because at first it was like 10, 20 people would show up. And then I'm like, I don't know about these numbers. I'm like, I don't know. But then the more you do it, it's just like more people just kind of tune in, And again, that's where I get like my inspiration for like next guests. Like they'll tell me like, hey, we want you to interview this person. I'm like, oh, okay. Or I'll tell them like, yo, reach out to this person for me. And they'll start like
tagging.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So distribution. So somebody's just starting and they're trying to get their name out there. You gave one where you was like, you literally were walking up to the salons, barbershops, etc., asking them to play it. But how else can people really double down on like distribution so people can know like, hey, this exists, this podcast is here?
Yeah. So I'm really big on newsletters. I'm really, I mean, and my team will say it, like I do not play around with newsletters. Like that is something that, people can sell newsletters, off of their contacts if you build it correctly. And I find that newsletters for me is like my most effective way. And I'm able to really see the clicks, who's opening up the email, and I do it in my own voice. And I think that's also important. But I'll give them like recaps of the week, the interview that's coming out, what's to come. Because remember,
if you don't have like a big subscriber list to your newsletter?
I'm old school. Like I'm the type of person where I'm like, who do I want to listen to this? All right, go on Instagram. Okay, that's their email. Let me input it. It takes more time. And then I also DM people my episodes. Like I'm like, and that's just me. Like I don't really have a team that does that. I'm actually really crazy about social media in terms of like, my team laughs at me because they're like, we can run it. I'm like, don't run my social.
Hold on. So these are more plays. Okay. Yeah. So running it back, going to Instagram. A lot of people do put their contact information out there. So grab that up. I mean, the bots are doing it. So that's why I get all these random calls. I'm like, how you got my number?
Yeah. Hello?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Then the next play is also sharing your episodes in the DMs.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm very intentional. I pick the best clip. And I'll tell them like, hey, if this is something that you like. I don't force anyone, but I just tell them to share if it's something that they love.
So Growing Up Latina does both video and audio.
Correct.
So when you're sending it out to people, are you telling them, hey, check it out on YouTube, or are you telling them to check it out on audio?
On audio.
On audio.
Because right now, sponsors, they're buying into audio more than anything.
Okay.
The YouTube is cool, but I run a lot of YouTube shorts and I still monetize off of my YouTube shorts. I actually make more money on my YouTube shorts and like my reels than I do on like the actual episode, because no one is going to sit down and watch an hour episode. And I love everybody that I interview, but to get someone to lock in for an hour, hour and a half is hard. So I'll run a few clips on YouTube Shorts and monetize off of that.
And you're able to monetize YouTube Shorts because you had like a certain amount of watch hours?
Yes. Okay. So I think you have to reach like 400 watch hours.
Okay.
So once you reach that, same thing with TikTok. I think you have to reach like 1,000 before you're actually able to go live. So you have to get to 1,000
followers.
Right. And so that's why for me, short form content is like the best way to go when building this podcast up. Even if you do half-hour episodes, like let's just think about like all the clips that you can cut up from the half. What I like to call it is building social equity.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing in this process.
Okay. So we've got several plays for distribution.
Yeah.
Love that. All right. So I want to talk about networks.
Sure.
Because there's tons of podcast networks that are popping up all over the place, promising distribution, promising ad revenue.
Yeah.
And basically, y'all, for those who don't know, there's these podcast networks where they house a whole bunch of different podcasts that and the benefit for them is then they go out to advertise and they're like, hey, we have all these podcasts on our network, give us your money and we'll place your ads across the podcast on our networks, right? So that's the value add for them. And then for the podcaster, the thought is the network is so bomb that they're actually bringing in real revenue dollars and they don't have to go and hunt for sponsorship placements and all that jazz. So what are your thoughts on podcast networks? Do you think you should be a part of one? If so, what you should be looking out for? How should you assess? What should you be asking for? All the things.
So I feel like podcast networks are cool. It doesn't hurt. It can only just help the situation. But I feel like if you run your podcast like it's your own network, then you're good. You know, like that's why for me, I really watched Wendy Williams and I really just said like, how am I going to create my own TV show? So when these podcast networks look at my content, is really ran as a show versus like a podcast, so to speak. But I look at a few things. I look at other podcasts that have signed in the past. I look at the content to make sure that, one, I'm not competing with anyone else's content, but two, to make sure that the content can really live here. And it's like a place where, again, the mission for me is just to amplify our voices. So as long as those things are aligned, then I think we're good to go. I mean, I've had a few meetings. I'm not signed to a network. And for various reasons, I am really anal about giving up equity into growing up Latina because this is my baby. And this is something that blood, sweat, tears for this project. So I feel like when I team up with someone is because they can add to it, something that I cannot do for myself. So I look at what can you add? What is the money looking like? What can you do? What monster machine can you really give me right now that is going to expedite this entire process for me? But giving up equity is so important. And yes, you know, if you want to scale your business, 1,000% you should go into partnership, but understand that not all money is good money, and partnership is very easy to get into a partnership, is very hard to get out of one.
Great advice. So let's get into the Talk That Talk segment where we, discuss something taboo in the Cultura. So you mentioned earlier your mom suffered from Alzheimer's. So you have an interesting story around why you decided to go public with that information and how your family responded to that. Can you share?
Yeah, so